Are you already on Wikisana?
Welcome, dear viewers, to our format The Meaning of Life. Today we are talking about brain tuning. I myself don't know exactly what is behind it, but I know that it can have fundamental effects on our everyday life, our learning. And what is really behind it, we will find out in a moment from Josua Kohberg. He is a neuroscientist. He has been researching and developing in this field for 26 years. And I'm looking forward to this program. It will be exciting. Stay tuned. Hello, dear Joshua. I'm looking forward to the conversation with you, because I haven't fully figured out what is behind it yet. But from what I've heard, it has an incredibly great potential for all of us. It's nice to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
You're welcome.
Yes, brain tuning. It's actually an art word, let's put it this way. We came up with this word at some point, because of course people kept asking us, what do you do? What do you research? And brain tuning stands for mood. So, when I'm in a mood myself, when I'm able to coordinate tension and relaxation, then I have effects in many areas. I can learn faster, I'm more relaxed, healthier through everyday life, I'm more receptive. So brain tuning, the word tuning, in English simply translates to mood. So how do I get my brain in the mood so that it's just in the optimal state?
Yes, and that includes a lot, because when you're in a good mood, our hormone release changes, the opportunity to learn. But how do you get there? How do you tune our brain, so to speak?
Yes, it's actually much easier than you might imagine. There are many ways and possibilities. For example, through controlled breathing, a classic, simple one. There are also breathing therapies, for example. We're more on the side of sound. I got into this whole topic in 1997 with the approach to accelerate language learning. It was about the question of how I can simply absorb information more efficiently. How can I learn faster? And I got this idea from Vera F. Birkenbeer at the time. So she was my impulse giver in the whole area. She also made sure that I studied neuroscience. Because in the end, I was so fascinated by the topic that I couldn't let go. As I said, I'm mainly concerned with sound. How does sound influence our brain activity? And what does it make up for the whole body?
And how do I have to imagine that? Is there now a brain tuning for all areas? If I tell you that I'm always stressed, that I'm not feeling well, is that also a case for brain tuning? Or is it just a special learning? Or does it cover everything?
It really covers almost everything. I always say, the head is round so that thinking can change direction. And that's how I would actually describe our work. We get people who just want to learn a language. We get people who want to do a burnout prophylaxis. We get professional athletes who want to increase their performance. And in fact, all of this is possible with brain tuning. And that's easy to explain. Because every person has a very individual approach. So one is more in the sports field. The other has a desire to learn something. The third may have a health challenge. And everywhere, I can achieve positive effects or improvements with brain tuning, and that's also very individual. Depending on, as I said, on the one hand it can be a sleep problem. On the other hand, it can really be a physical discomfort. You can't even say that. In the end, it's really cut down to the individual, what that person needs.
Okay, but if I come to you now and I have a problem, how do I start? Or how do I do that?
That's a very good question. The start is also extremely simple. We have developed an app that allows you to analyze your own voice. And the whole topic of brain tuning is actually based on how I am set up by my voice characteristic. I have to get a little out of it. It's a very old system, comes from the Vedas, from the Indian. The whole thing came to Europe in the 1960s, when you had a natural scientist, Vemu Mukunda, who said at the time that the voice is as unique as a fingerprint. It was a bit spooky for a lot of people back then. Today we know that. I can unlock my phone with my voice. I can use the voice as a biometric product. And we know today that there is no voice that is identical. Even if they sound very similar, they are very different. And in the very first step, we derive the so-called base tone from the voice and above that the personality traits. And when we have this base tone, that's what really helps us to get into the mood very, very quickly and to simply do brain tuning at a high level.
That means that the voice is individual. I was aware of that. But that you can really hear the personality traits of someone you don't know and just hear the voice.
Exactly. It's a really fascinating system. There's been research on it for over 20 years. My wife is actually the leader, Simone. You have to imagine that we don't evaluate what the person is saying. It doesn't matter in which language someone is doing this analysis. What we evaluate is the number of tones. Our voice is made up of 12 tones, as you know it from classical music. And then we just take a look at how many times the tone G, the tone A, the tone F, the tone Fis, etc. is played. And from that a so-called voice image is created. And from this I know what the base tone of a person is. It can take a while. Unfortunately, we have about a third of our clients who are out of tune at the beginning. So that's actually the case when I'm under pressure, when I have health problems, when the relationship doesn't work, when I have financial problems, whatever. Then it can actually express itself in the voice in the form of a detuning. So if the person doesn't feel well, then the probability is also high that there is a detuning.
But is it so that it is recognizable for you that it is out of tune? Because that's important. Otherwise everything would actually build up on a false diagnosis. And what I find fascinating when I think about it is that it is really very neutral. Because it is this app that determines these tones. And I think there are so many. I also work a bit therapeutically, and sometimes you are always there with yourself. The interpretations, no matter what you do. And that seems to me very neutral now. There are not only things that could influence the assessment.
Exactly. And in fact, there is no conscious assessment from the client. So we ask that the client goes very positively into the analysis. So that, for example, if he is stressed at work, then he should not think about that while he is doing the analysis. But maybe a nice experience, the last vacation, or a nice experience with the partner. So the good vibration, I say, is elementary. But this algorithm, which we have been researching for over 20 years, is practically embedded, and it also shows up immediately when we are out of tune. And that's what the app does. Then there is the possibility that you do so-called mood coaching. That means you are accompanied for 8 weeks, you work with your own voice, you use very classic methods to simply get yourself in the middle. And then after 8 weeks you would do the analysis again to see if the base tone can be determined.
That's great. And it's in many cultures and it has tradition everywhere. The tones, the singing, the healing. And does that have anything to do with it? That it is really something healing for us, what we always knew. And then the bass tone, how do you filter it out? How do you find it out?
Exactly, that is the strongest, most representative tone in the voice image. And as you just said, this culture of tones can be traced in all old writings. We know, even if you look at it purely physically, the primary substance is sound. That means we know vibration, frequency, sound. Everything arises from this. And then it's no wonder that we express ourselves through sound. And that's also quite easy to understand. If I have a person who is calm, then the voice is pleasant. He has a relatively deep voice, usually he calms down. So that's why the voice is like that. And if I have a person who, for example, suffers from pain, who suffers from fear, who is perhaps attacked, then the voice becomes higher and higher, more tense, more pressed. And actually, the worst thing you can experience from a voice is in a death. If someone dies from pain, then we know that it is of course massively out of tune then.
I also experienced this with people who have been traumatized. The voice has changed. Or it even goes completely away from time to time. It is no longer available in certain situations. And you can see how closely connected that is. And also, for example, when singing, I know that a lot of positive things happen there. That's why I really get the system. I'm not such a technician, but if you can capture people so well using technology, of course, it's a wonderful instrument. And how is that? Do people come on site or can you do it from home?
Exactly. You can do that very relaxed. The only thing you need is a smartphone. Because that's the technical basis. You need the microphone, be able to download the app. But in fact, you can do it very relaxed at home. We also give an idea of how to do it. For example, after getting up, about an hour later, you shouldn't necessarily talk to anyone else during the hour. You shouldn't listen to music. So don't get influenced beforehand. Just stay with yourself and then carry out this analysis. As I said, the time consumption is about 1.5 hours, with the hour of relaxation in front of it. So it's very smart. It's also free of charge in the first step. You can just try it out.
Ah, exciting. And afterwards you get an evaluation. Do I understand that correctly?
Exactly. So we then build up a lot of products on it. So first of all, you can buy a detailed evaluation. If you say, okay, that sounds totally exciting. I would like to know more about myself now. This is a PDF file with just under 40 pages. A lot of our customers and users always say it's incredible. So you don't meet anyone. I take a voice sample in an app and then I get an evaluation in which I can see myself very deeply. That's almost spooky. But it's actually just math. It's not spooky, it's just math. And the voice represents the very deep areas of my character, which also come from a time. So if you look at it neuroscientifically, the deep part of the character is formed in early childhood. And I can't do that with classical coaching. So that means I have an idea of what it could be like, but it's more problematic to access it. And with voice, with the analysis, I can easily see myself through my voice. That would be the first step. The second, you can book a conversation with an analyst, with a voice analyst. You can then get individual coaching on your bass tone. You can combine the bass tone with learning content. So that's actually an extremely open thing. And most of our users will become real fans of voice.
I'm already becoming a fan. So many things go through my head. You could use it in the therapeutic field, in cooperation, in whatever. In all areas, actually. And also, I don't know if it's possible, but maybe through unconscious beliefs or things that we carry with us into life, that may prevent us from becoming the wonderful person we are. And maybe there could be a clue for us.
Absolutely. A part of this analysis is a so-called SWOT analysis, so strengths, weaknesses, risks, opportunities. And I can immediately see, for example, if I experience beliefs in a certain way, then often we only notice the things we don't like so much, that seem uncomfortable to us. But they are also part of our personality. I'll give you an example. If someone is a very, very structured person, then maybe he only notices that he is not as creative or that he can't speak as well as a hostess, for example. Only then he doesn't necessarily see the advantages he has, which, for example, result in the structure. So that he might go through things very differently, that he may be technically oriented, that he can program or master bookkeeping. And those are the topics where you really get a great insight into yourself with voice and can also find out where your being is. Because when we talk about coaching, then in my opinion it is one of the biggest misconceptions. I'm always a bit provocative. I always say coaching doesn't work at all. Because actually coaching, first of all, would have to define where the being of the person is. And to optimize yourself from the being. I'm in on that. That works. But now to make someone out of an introverted person who stands on stage in front of 5,000 people, I just don't think that's feasible. I would try to get someone. It's like trying to make me a professional footballer. Not everything is possible. It's not possible for me in terms of age, not possible in terms of athletic conditioning, not possible in terms of interest. So why should I go this way? But then there are always such sentences in coaching that everything is possible and everyone can become super rich and super sexy. And I'm very critical of that.
I agree with you. But that you look at the window and see what possibilities there are. That doesn't mean you have to grasp everything. And with the sentences of faith I meant that. There are also the sentences of faith in which we don't do things that we can and our being would do, because we have an assumption. And to be able to dissolve that and see that this is where my ability lies, and to be able to do that and not have to do things. I always compare it a bit like with horses. Because one horse is a wonderful horse for jumping, the other a therapy horse. If you wanted to make the other one out of the other, it wouldn't work out well, would it? But in this way, one thing is not better than the other, because it is the being that really comes to its own. And what I also find exciting, for me, is that in the technique all aspects are contained in it. Body, mind, and soul, am I seeing that right? And that in a technical achievement, I find that remarkable. Because otherwise the technique is always a bit like we are coming away from our being and are influenced by it. We are giving away from the true being. And that seems to me to be another solution, doesn't it?
I am a very technical-oriented person, I have to say. In my first professional life, before I studied neuroscience, I actually come from the computer corner. I did media design, programmed websites, multimedia CDS, CDROMS, and so on. And I was quite successful there, but this connection between technology and the human being is what drives me. Because in fact, it is like this, I am with you. If I look at the use of technology today, it usually takes us away from us. So I take a smartphone and then I look around in some social media. That means I direct my attention to the outside. But regardless of that, I can use technology in the same way, to direct the attention to the inside. And that's a key for me, because technology is like a car or a screwdriver. I use it to achieve something. So I came here today with a car and I'm actually very happy that I could do that, because otherwise I would have had to walk for a week to get the same distance. And so is technology. When I get an understanding of how I use technology, technology is a super exciting topic.
Yes, and a wonderful life partner too. And if you also have people who don't have a very special concern, or how do you experience that when someone comes to you, who is actually satisfied with life and says, but that's what I'm interested in now? Do you have the experience that these people also benefit from it?
Absolutely, because in fact, brain tuning is applicable to everyone. So in fact, we all have potentials that we don't have on the surface yet. We often focus on weaknesses or something, but if I really know my potential and I'm basically already doing well, then such a small fine-tuning, such a little tuning, can mean another giant step. But it doesn't have to be. So it's just enough to recognize that if I tune myself, my life will be more atmospheric. And that's how I would like to express it. So we have a lot of customers who actually only come with the approach, hey, I just have to learn a language relatively quickly and with little time. And then they come there, for example, learn voice and then use it too. Because in the beginning they only need it to learn faster. But then they suddenly realize, hey, I sleep better somehow. I also have a better mood in the relationship. All kinds of things just happen. Because when I'm in the mood, when I tune myself and bring my best self to the fore, then I will automatically become a better member of human society. I will also behave differently towards animals. Because when I'm balanced, I don't have to project on anyone. Then everything is just fine as it is.
Wow, that sounds really enticing. Because I think that's really the kind of topics we all have, no matter how well we are doing in life, still have things that we want to improve on, that we want to change. And we don't always succeed with them, although we may already have the knowledge, the deeper knowledge, and maybe old things come in. And that sounds really enticing to me. And do you also have applications for children?
Absolutely. With children, it is now the case that such a voice image is not yet created in depth. You can do that if you are interested. But before puberty or before the end of puberty, the tone can simply change. That means the child is still very much in the formative phase, is also directed outward. So you can look at the direction, but it doesn't make sense to determine a bass tone now. But we have a universal tone, a harmonization tone, which works for every person, which corresponds to the magnetic field of the Earth. And I can use this tone excellently with children, for example. We have a therapy form, for example, called Delphinians, so we call it dolphin therapy without dolphins. We only work with this tone, for example, and of course with therapists who do the treatment. And there we have children who cannot express themselves at all. They have no language skills, they suffer from gene defects, they are epileptics. So there are many areas, and that harmonizes these people too. We could never do an analysis with them because they can't speak, for example.
Yes, that's a very exciting field, because I also work with children, and some of them can't express themselves, or they are autistic, they don't speak at all. And I always think, for example, the horses, the animals have so much healing. And if you could give something there, because they have so many stressful situations in life, where they are really in a high stress, and if they get anything, and you have had numerous experiences.
Exactly, we've been doing that for, I don't know, Delphinians, for 7 or 8 years. It is also accompanied by the University of Mainz, scientifically, so it's a very exciting topic. And the experiences are actually about reaching a relaxation with these children. So there are a lot of them who are really on the road with great cramps. They just have a handicap, let's say, that limits them. And as you say, it leads to stressful situations. And all of this is brain tuning. So when the brain gets into a relaxation effect, the vegetative nervous system relaxes, and they can simply switch between tension and relaxation better. And that's a very clear nonverbal therapy that we do. And that is then accompanied by chiropractic, by osteopathy, depending on what the child needs. We actually do that in warm body water. So that means the child floats in warm body water, is treated, and is tuned with frequencies from Delphinians research with this bass tone.
Wow, that sounds exciting. And the tuning, how does it take place? Is that something that the person gets on himself, or is it external?
Exactly, so that's actually the core of all my research. So in 1997, with an impulse from Werner F. Birkenbiel, I started researching how you could hear passively without the aid of your ears. That always sounds completely spooky at first, but it's all scientifically founded. So we work together with several universities, and as I said, I've been optimizing it for 26 years. And you wear it like a smartwatch today. So you have to imagine that you have metal plates on the back that simply emit a vibration. And this vibration comes to the skin and can be decrypted by the auditory nerve as an audio signal. It's incredibly fascinating because the auditory nerve is connected to the skin. All of our nerves are connected to the skin, but basically I can hear over the skin. And with that, I can do dolphin therapies, for example. I can use it in everyday life to learn a language, to hear my bass tone, to hear affirmations, whatever.
Wow, that's exciting. I'm glad we're doing more shows, because we're at the end now. But it's such a huge topic, we've got so many ideas and thoughts. And I'm curious to see what the individual applications are. And we'll look at that in the other shows. It's great that you were here. Thank you very much, Joshua.
My pleasure.
Dear viewers, thank you very much for being here. I'm not very technical, but this topic really got me into it. And I would be really surprised to see what I could learn about my voice, or how I could optimize my life. Maybe you felt the same way. Stay healthy. See you soon. Bye.